What happens now is that Claude Code is, we're here in Las Vegas, it's kind of like one of these machines where you just keep hitting return. You hope the gold comes filling out.
Sure, it's very much a slot machine.
And that's not going to last. I mean, the first $1 billion outage due to AI is just, it's a countdown timer.
Welcome back to another episode of Business Disruptions in Tech. I'm your host, Howard Holton, and I'm here with Peter Corless, the Principal Product Marketer for Redpanda. How are you doing, Peter?
I'm doing very good. Pleasure to be here.
Before we started recording here, you and I discovered, along with several others in my crew, that we are all Dungeons and Dragons aficionados.
Who isn't, right?
Right? Everyone should be.
Of course.
There's nothing more fun than a little, fantasy role-playing.
Of course. Or science fiction, whatever.
Or science fiction. Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, and what I was doing starting last year was I started doing a D20 test. Very simple. Just draw a D20, put a 20 on top. You'd think this would be pretty darn easy for an LLM to do, but I found it failing over and over again. And it didn't matter whether it was Anthropic or Gemini or you name it. Claude, by the way, can only do SVGs, so it was terrible at it.
Sure.
And then there are some that can do animated GIFs, like Midjourney. And so this was a very simple micro benchmark, and some couldn't just do an icosahedron, like a 20-sided shape. Some couldn't place it on the ground to put it on an edge. Some couldn't do numbers from 1 to 20. They would throw in a 22 or a 99.
Sure.
And we're like, why is this so hard, right? And I think this gets into how at some point we're going to need these things called world models or neurosymbolic systems, right? To join things that are logical with things that are, plausible from an LLM. But we're not there yet. But I was asking people, why are you rolling the dice on $1 billion worth of AI infrastructure if this is your result?
So I think that's a really good question. At the same time, I don't think it's a question that matters. Not the question you asked, but the D20 question.
The D20 is just a thing that I was doing.
Sure.
But for instance, if it was oncology,
sure.
False positives, false negatives.
Without a doubt. I mean, the thing that I think people tend to forget is they are large language models. That's the type of generative AI we're running. They're not large scientific models or large mathematical models or large medical models or whatever else.
Exactly.
The frustration I have is it's the same frustration I have with people who go, look, the model doesn't work. It doesn't know how many R's there are in strawberry. Sure. But why would you ever use the most expensive computing resource in the world to calculate the number of R's in strawberry? It seems like you're the problem, not the thing that's determined, that's a non-deterministic model for creating connective language.
It's the old saw that if you give a kid a hammer, everything's a nail.
Sure.
And I think that that's one of the things that we still need to discover and discern in the year of our Lord 2026 is when is it appropriate to use an LLM in a process? When should the LLM blend with other kinds of traditional systems? I always ask people, how many QPS are you going to get out of your LLM? And they go, what are you talking about? And I'm saying, well, you're obviously not a database person, right? There's concurrency issues. There's, the efficiency. A Redis database could read millions of rows in a second or write 1 million rows in a second. So what are you using an LLM to do? Maybe you just need the aggregate result of a query from a database as opposed to making raw queries against a database with an LLM. And I think that that's the kind of thing that we need to do a better job of going forward for efficiency's sake, performance sake, scalability sake, et cetera.
I mean, I tend to agree. I think we're back to the old, the basics are what get us there.
Right.
And the first basic is, are you using the right tool for the right job?
Exactly.
Not everything is a nail. Sometimes it's a screw, sometimes it's a bolt, sometimes it's a washing machine.
Exactly. And this is not the first time we've been here. There was a time when NoSQL was the popular thing on the block and everything became a NoSQL database. Then eventually people go like, we like joins.
For sure.
And I think that it's just the latest in the generation, right? And then, of course, in the last decade, we had everything became a blockchain, right? So just because we have this technology, we need to understand where this goes in our
I don't think you're right about the everything became a blockchain. I think they tried it 10 years ago. The blockchain is still generating today, 10 years later.
Fair. Exactly.
Got their 5th record loaded last week.
Exactly. And I think so that's the thing, is that we need to understand where and when is an LLM an appropriate choice of a tool, and then how do we get the best efficiency out of it, right? And I think the other thing that people are running into is the fact that, wow, it was so awesome on day 1, and then by day 20, it's like, why is this thing erroring on me?
Sure.
Right? You've run out of your input token budget, right? So, or your token window. And I think that these are the kinds of things that we're going to discover the deeper we get into these systems. So right now, people are just throwing technology at a problem, and they're not really thinking deeply about, is this the best spend?
Yeah, I think the other problem is they fundamentally don't understand the change in the technology, right? In the AI, observability is a really good,
Correct.
view into that, right? Observability was, let's take systems that already exist and figure out what we can reveal about what's happening that we can then measure and take action if necessary, kind of thing.
Yes, and I even try and differentiate. I say that there's 2 different things here. There's AI observability, which is any sort of distributed system has observability to metrics, logs, traces. But AI evaluation is a net new thing.
Oh, that's a totally different thing.
Exactly.
But also the observability of AI is different, should be different as well. We're not retrofitting old systems that already existed. It is, in fact, wholly new. So shouldn't we, instead of going, let's jam in what we did for network observability and just call it AI observability,
Right.
shouldn't we think about it fundamentally different? Should we
Yes.
determine, are the primitives to how we observe and what we want to observe, what would the output to be different? And therefore, since we're at the very beginning of this and none of us have it in production yet, not in any measurable way, there's a lot of failures, but not really production. Shouldn't we get ahead of this and fix this now rather than just allow vendors that did observability 3 years ago to jam their observability and just label it AI?
Yeah, I think, obviously we've if you listen to a Charity Majors, she'll talk about observability 2.0, which is you have these wide logs, and it's not the 3 different pillars that we were used to, right? So there may be, for instance, I think that transcripts it's close to tracing, but it's not exactly tracing, right? And for instance, you have both the initial prompt, the tool calls, the result from that initial thing, but then somebody might do a second turn, right? And so there's a longer frame of what's being talked about here. And I think, we do have an opportunity to take a look at multi-turn traces and transcripts that we wouldn't normally do with a typical distributed trace, which was usually like, an input and eventually an output, right? And there's a bunch of things that go on in the background that you're going to explode out and then get your result. But I think multi-turn transcripts is a much more interesting thing that you can do with AI that is a net new.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's necessary to be able to say you have AI observability.
Yes.
Right. If you can't measure the data that went in and classify it accordingly, and the data that came out and classify it accordingly, I don't think the rest of observability and AI matters at all. Right? As in, should the AI have been given this data by this user? Should the AI respond with this response based on the input or not? And thus far, I really haven't seen the observability vendors able to do that particular piece.
Yeah. The other thing I think that's an interesting thing that we need to add on for AI observability is AI efficiency. So just because you can throw huge token budgets at things, should you? So can you use tool calls efficiently and get the amount of input tokens down by 70%, right? How do you do, for instance, routing? Does everything need to be on the highest per token inference, or could I use a CPU-based inferencing engine that is maybe internally tuned, and it's not going to cost as much, but it's not going to return like zippity, right? So I think that we need to take a look also at a lot more kinds of things with AI than just, what was the transcript on this one?
Oh, for sure. I'm trying to think of a building designing systems and building code has some value in a premier model. Otherwise, I can't think of anything else that I do that requires, Sonnet or, full fat GPT. Almost everything is, Haiku, Opus, but Haiku, maybe Sonnet or GPT Mini.
Right.
Like the quality that you get back tends to be more than good enough at, 1/30th the cost of the premier model.
Yes. And I think also, too, as people get a handle on how to do fine tuning, that they're going to want to see the difference between how does this inference perform without fine tuning and with fine tuning. And they want to see that delta. Right.
For sure. I think then we start to get into, everything old is new again. We start to get into, holy crap, we should have paid attention to data quality some decades ago.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, for instance, right now, that's the CDO is one of the key blockers on the C-suite right now. They're saying the data is not ready, right? Sure. Everything else, like the CTO is all gas, no brakes. They're playing with all the latest tools and toys. And then it's other traditional stakeholders like the CIO who might have access to the gold table that says, you can do anything you want, but not with my gold table. Sure. Maybe I will grant one experimental agent here read-only access.
Sure. I mean, the CIO has been hammered for so many decades to control cost, control liability.
Exactly.
Right. And, very much has been in the CTO is driving value. You're a cost center. Deal with it. And AI does not make that a tenable organizational culture component, right?
No. It just exacerbates what's already been the trend. I think, interestingly, between the CTO and the CIO is kind of the chief product officer, who's got a little bit of concerns of both, right? So they want to have something that's bulletproof for a user. It's got to be AI powered, but like the chief legal officer is saying, how do we not get sued?
Sure.
So they have both the conservative as well as the aggressive application of AI that they're looking to do. And I think also the chief legal officer, he's taking a look at new standards, new laws. We have the EU AI Act is coming into effect in August for high-risk entities.
Sure. I mean, if you read the EU AI Act, though, I think it's both good and bad.
Yes.
Because it's really narrowly defined. It's not toothless, but it's also very use case specific. And if you read it, most people, I think, can avoid getting their butts kicked by it. The positive, GDPR showed that it was incredibly bite heavy, right? When you violated, it was not like Sarbanes-Oxley, as an example.
Correct.
Right, which turns out toothless. So the EU's already shown they're happy to throw fines, they're happy to levy fines, they're happy to make this painful. You really need to be a good citizen. I'm very happy to see that while the EU's first step for the AI Act was very narrow use cases, I'm just hoping that they don't give up like they did on the second part of GDPR, and they continue to evolve it as we better understand the use cases and the risks of AI. Unlike the state of Tennessee, which I don't know if you saw their proposed action, but effectively class 1 felony for a chatbot that impersonates a mental health professional,
right?
Which is a level of insanity I'm not sure I understand. Also, a level of damage that I'm not sure I understand.
Well, there are organizations that you can talk to in the industry that are traditional governance companies, and a lot of them are pivoting to AI governance.
Sure.
And they have dozens of policy experts, right? And I think that it's going to be, for EU, there's like the one law that covers everybody. For the US, it's going to be a landscape of landmines.
Yeah, just like we are with privacy.
Right.
Right.
I think that, so again, for people who aren't familiar, this summer in August, we have the high-risk AI, but it's next year that you have the large-scale AI.
Sure.
So this year, it's things like police education, strangely enough, is also considered high risk. But I think like banks and fintech and ad tech, that's going to be more high scale, which will happen next year. So we have some time, depending upon what kind of organization you have. It's not exactly toothless, but we are going to see how the EU navigates the enforcement of it.
It's very narrowly scoped, and enforcement's definitely going to be a challenge. Again, I'm just happy that the EU showed with GDPR that they are not afraid to enforce.
Correct.
They are very willing to enforce, which means we really should be paying attention.
Correct. And in fact, if you are paying attention, Colorado, California, there are some states that are modeling what they're doing exactly on the EU AI Act, and from that, the underlying standard of ISO 42001.
Yeah.
Right. So again, I think that for a lot of entities that are not looking at it, they should. And I'm telling people that you should be using compliance as an offensive weapon.
100%. I mean, the reality is all of this stuff exists to ensure that we are good custodians of our customers' data.
Exactly.
And our employees' data. The fact is, we should have been doing this for decades. We should have done this the very first time we wrote data to a punch card. Right? Had we done that, none of this stuff would have been necessary.
Right.
But the reality is there's too much money to be made too much more profit to be realized on not being a good custodian. And that's a problem.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So anything that's reasonable that helps us ensure that the people we give our data to are required to be good custodians, I'm a big fan of.
Yeah. So that covers the chief legal officer. He wants to make sure that we have governance. The CISO is taking a look at governance more as like a security layer, right? And then the chief financial officer is taking a look at governance in terms of financial budget, like we talked about with the routing, and making sure that you're getting your best return on investment, right? I think right now the other thing that's going on is that there's still a lot of gift economy, where there's a budget set aside, we can't be late, we need to do something this year. And there's a kind of a gift economy right now where there is no ROI calculation. There's just, get us there fastest right now. That's why the CTOs are all gas, no brake. But I think that between 26 and 27, you're going to start seeing stronger requirements for some kind of ROI, some kind of return on equity for small businesses, right? And I think that these governance standards will also help organizations figure out, like, are we in this as a hobby, or are we in this to stay?
Sure. Is it worth it for us to be in it to stay?
Yes.
Right. All right. Well, we are at Google Next 2026.
Yes.
Which I find to be a mouthful, and I'm unsure why. Like, Google Next they don't roll together, but we're at Google Next. What brings Redpanda to Next? What's got you guys excited?
So we have announced a thing called the Agentic Data Plane. And what this is a framework upon which organizations, so we're talking about global 2,000 organizations, can go to production and get past what I call the wall of nope. So that right now, a lot of existing AI systems are designed for the vibe coder or engineering productivity, but that's not going to get you past the CFO. That's not going to get you past the chief legal officer. That's not going to get you past the CISO. In order to get to production, you need to make sure that these things are running securely and in a way that can be governed. So these systems can't just be using your credentials, right? I mean, right now, any employee could be pulled into a windowless office, and somebody from the CISO's office, somebody from the physical security office, and somebody from HR can say, what did you do?
Correct. And you'd have no idea.
Because your AI is running wild.
Right.
And we need to provide an infrastructure for on behalf of authorization, so that it's clear when an employee was doing something, and when the agent was doing something, and when the human was asking the AI to do something squirrely.
Sure. So you need it's malintended versus malintended versus malformed?
Yes.
Right. We need to know when the AI is doing it and kind of takes action. Like we set up a sandbox. Mm-hmm. We give the AI an instruction rather than the AI saying, "I can't do that, Hal." What it did instead was broke out of the sandbox completely and engineered something that no one intended.
Right.
Versus the user asked the AI to do something that was malicious.
Correct.
Versus, one of 500 standard errors.
Yeah, and there's also other things like confused deputy, where like Hal told me it's okay to use you in my agent. Like he just told I'm Hal's buddy, right? So we have to avoid the abuse and misuse of agents, and so we need to give them their own credentials. If the CIO is saying you can get access to the gold table, again, read only. And maybe certain columns are redacted. And rather than getting the raw data scores, maybe I only get an aggregation, right? All of these kinds of things need to be scoped down so the agent is only getting what the agent should be getting. As opposed to what happens now is that Claude Code is, we're here in Las Vegas, it's kind of like one of these machines where you just keep hitting return, return, return. You hope the gold comes filling out.
Sure, it's very much a slot machine.
And that's not going to last. I mean, the first $1 billion outage due to AI is just, it's a countdown timer. We've already seen $1 million losses due to AI.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
we're overdue.
McDonald's has had to have $1 million in token loss just from Reddit discovering that they had no governance on their chatbot. and I think the screenshot that I posted on LinkedIn was basically, I'm really hungry and I would love to get a Big Mac, but I have to figure out a solution using Python to this problem before I can order a Big Mac. And it replied with the Python code. It was like, oh my God.
Yes. So we're already overdue for $1 billion loss due to AI. So we need to start putting in, and I also, by the way, I personally have a hatred for the term guardrails. Guardrails are to keep a sleepy driver back on the road, right?
No, they're to keep a sleepy driver from crashing into other people.
Yes.
Like the sleepy driver is likely to get massively injured by the guardrails.
Yes.
Right. No car survives the impact of the guardrails as good as it was before it hit the guardrail.
Exactly. But for the median strip, we have the Jersey barrier, right, to keep head-on crashes from occurring. And then in an actual war zone, you have other kinds of barriers. HESCO barriers are filled with dirt. Right. When blast radius is not an analogy for the CISO, right? So when you're talking about how do we protect against AI's malicious use, either an insider attack,
or intended or unintended.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. AI gone wild. We need to expand beyond a guardrail. We need to consider like deeper and more stringent kinds of defense mechanisms. And I also think that the whole concept of like an attack surface is gone. Wherever the AI can reach is now attack volume.
Sure.
Three-dimensional. If it can reach into the database, any table can be brought down, right? If it can start paying bills, money can be siphoned off.
Sure.
So we need to really reconsider what security means in the age of AI. Now, many people say, well, this is just like any other thing, but I think the speed and scale at which the attack can happen.
Yes, volume, velocity, and variety, right?
Exactly.
Same issue we had in big data, but now there's an actor behind volume, velocity, and variety that we are unprepared for, right? We were having a conversation 10 minutes before we started the podcast, right, just in this room, because all the identity providers are talking about AI, but they're talking about AI wrong. They're talking about AI as though AI is an NHI, a non-human identity. It is absolutely not a non-human identity. It is not human, but when we think about a non-human identity, what we're talking about is a service account. Services act deterministically. I know exactly what the service is going to do. So when I over-provisioned that service account because it was easy, I created a security flaw, but not with the service itself.
Right.
I created a security flaw if someone were to take over that account, they have more permissions than I intended. But the service will continue to act deterministically for 30, 40, 50 years and probably has.
Right.
Humans are also deterministic in a different way. Susie in accounting will always do the things Susie in accounting does within some percentage of normalization, because Susie just wants to get her job done and go home. Right. Susie's not trying to figure out what are the limits of the power I was given by IT. She may not even know how to ask that question. So over provisioning Susie on a screen she's never going to look at has a very low risk. Again, someone takes over the account, it's a different issue. But now we're asking someone to take over the account. Now we're giving a non-deterministic tool complete account takeover and trying to say that it's a non-human identity, which it is not. Also, to your point, it absolutely impersonates humans.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, Susie is non-deterministic. All of a sudden, the service account is non-deterministic, and yet we're not talking about the risk of that potential breakout, right?
Yeah, and Susie, by the way, any human user usually uses about 4% of the account access that they have. Like, but an LLM would want to do maximal exploitation of what it has access to.
Correct. It's going to try to figure out the fastest way to get what you want done in the way it thinks you want it done, and it will happily hallucinate along the way.
Right. So guardrails is useful in the sense that you want to keep honest AI honest, right? But it's not useful for a malicious AI, or like somebody downloaded something from one of these catalogs online and suddenly there's a worm in your system, right?
Sure.
So that all sorts of malicious tool calls, et cetera. So we need to come up with a new paradigm for how we're going to secure things in real time, lock them down, stop them dead in their tracks. At the same time, we also need the equivalent of what I call the National Transportation Safety Board, like transcripts, so that you can do the after, if this fails, if the runtime protections fail, there needs to be a way of doing the post hoc analysis.
Sure.
Where did this go wrong?
I mean, don't we need that regardless, though? Like, we
Yes.
need it even if the guardrails work, or
Correct.
whatever you call it, the controls work, we still need the black box.
Yes.
Because we can't, the answer can't be no. It can be no but.
Yes.
It can be yes and, it can be no but.
Right.
No, you can't do this, but do this instead is what we have to get to. Because you can't have the office of no as an automated system. Right? And so we're all trying to move at the speed that the market requires so that we don't get disrupted, so our companies stay relevant, and that requires us to use AI. So then we also have to, in all of our systems, not just end with a no, but end with a no, and here's why, so we can then figure out what the yes would have been.
Yeah, and I think that if you take a look at like traditional like malware detection, there's known goodware. Like these are signatures of things I've seen, and I'm permitting them on my network. This is known malware signatures. This is like no bueno stuff. You see this, you shut it down immediately. And then this is grayware. There's like a whole bunch of things that we don't know how to categorize yet. So you might need to sandbox them, deconstruct them, and figure out, are they good, bad, or indifferent? And then you can, sort them into the two different categories. That's the same kind of methodology we need to use for AI, where there will be some known good tool calls, some known good things that we've permitted and have blessed. There's going to be a lot that's going to be surprising for CISO teams.
Sure.
What is this? I have no idea. What was the intent behind it? We're going to need to understand that, right? And then regardless of the intent, the implementation may be completely orthogonal with what the intent was, right? So I think that's anybody in security, AI security, has got a decade worth of full-time employment ahead of them.
Sure. They've got a decade of work in front of them. You need to get it done in 3 months.
Exactly. But I think that's what we're going to be seeing more and more of is we need to have a master filter system, a really fast filter system to be able to intercept things that are known bad tool calls. We're going to need to, we don't want to be blockers. The CISO doesn't want to be seen as the bad guy constantly. So we're going to have to give him tool sets to accelerate how quickly we can get agents to production.
For sure.
So, and what we're hoping to build then is a way to do, let's say, like an AI registry, right? So that you can have tool registries, you can have LLM registries. Like, for instance, one of the things is a big thing for me for the D20 test, for instance, is what kind of image input does this LLM support? And what kind of image output does this LLM support? Why am I spending any tokens on Claude if I know it is only going to give me an SVG?
Sure.
Well, I would like to have a profile of these LLMs before I make any calls. So we're not even there yet with that as an industry standard. What is an LLM capable of doing?
You have to have a way to constantly do profiling as well.
Yes.
Right. Every time there's an update, the system needs to receive some sort of notification there was an update, so it can receive a new profile and make changes on the fly.
Exactly.
Right. Because as we all know, right, this stuff is changing continuously.
Constantly. Right. And it is polymorphic too. I mean, one person might only speak English and they don't care if it speaks Russian. Another person might care passionately to what grade level of Russian it speaks. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
So does this speak Miltech Russian? Does it speak medical, oncology Russian, right? So we don't have a way of scoring these things right now, and people are just throwing them into production. I think that we still have standards that we need to bring to market to help us do these kinds of things automagically. I think there's still a lot of auto negotiation that we are not capable of doing because we're still just really, we're at flintlock musket level with a lot of AI implementations right now.
For sure.
So
I mean, the good news is it's the worst it will ever be today.
Yes, well, we're hoping with what we're doing with Redpanda that we'll have a framework upon which Again, you can plug into your IDP and get all the goodness from that. You can plug in your observability and your evaluation systems, and you have transcripts, and that will help you understand what your AI is doing, that there's a comprehensibility to it. We want to make sure this is not a walled garden, so I don't care which frontier model you're bringing, or an on-premises kind of, private model. And again, Redpanda, our go-to has always been your data sources and your data sinks. All of this needs to fit into a framework. We're just hoping that we can do this where it's not locked into any one vendor or any one cloud. That needs to be something that an industry, like a global 2000 industry, can build their next decade worth of AI infrastructure on top of. And again, we're not alone. There's a lot of companies that we're talking with right now. They've been in governance for a decade.
Sure.
So we want to be able to plug into them.
Yeah, sure. The challenge that I would have that obviously comes to mind is I'm a global 2000. I've got 400,000 users globally.
Yes.
All of them will eventually want access to an AI tool.
Correct.
The goal of the AI tool is to allow them to, let's say, 10x their productivity. Let's say we buy into the bullshit.
Okay.
At the very least, they're going to have a lot of data going in and data coming out. They're going to have a lot of conversations.
Yes.
How do we make this so this is not the unmanageable nightmare of holy crap, I've just 10x the amount of data I have to look at in a day?
Right. I mean, obviously, in the last decade, we were talking about other trends that we've seen come and go, the data mesh or a data mess, right? That was the holy grail of the last decade, where there's some auto-magical thing that takes a bunch of orthogonal systems that don't speak to each other and just snap your fingers and everybody has access to everything, right? I don't think that there's going to be any way to auto-magically do any of this stuff. I think it's going to be well-trod lessons and data accessibility. Redpanda, again, we have hundreds of connectors that are battle-tested, Snowflake, ClickHouse, you name it, right? That these are systems that we know how to connect to. It's a question as to, again, do you do this through MCP or do you go through a native connector to like Snowpipes, right? It's going to be, and we're going to try and be opinionated about this. I think that we're also going to be working with our customers in the sense that this is not a one-size-fits-all product-led growth kind of thing. Like this is not going to go and just auto-magically happen and like 100 million people are going to adopt what we're doing with ADP. We're working right now on a design partnership level so that we have, for example, a multinational bank. We have a multinational chip vendor. We have an ad tech company. Each one of them is completely different.
Sure.
They have different data sources. They have different data expectations. The bank told us we do not get math wrong. That's their base level of service.
Okay.
And they want to have an agent for all of their advisors. So yeah, we need to provide something for them specifically. For the ad tech provider, they're taking a look on making sure that they're doing business efficiently, right? For the chip vendor, they're taking a look at radically changing how they do engineering, right?
Sure.
And I think that what a lot of SaaS vendors in the last couple of decades are going to have to get used to is that this is not like walking into a Michelin star restaurant and seeing a menu. Instead, the chef themselves is going to have to come out and say, all the ingredients I have in my kitchen. What would be your favorite meal? Because right now with AI, we can build anything for you to satisfy your diet and your taste.
Based on how often my wife makes a decision about dinner, this is actually fantastic because of the hundreds of thousands of things I thought would happen will drop to zero.
Right. But I think that it's going to take organizations to rethink how they're delivering software. And it also is going to take companies to rethink what is their base value of what they're producing internally, what they expect from their vendors, what they expect from open source providers. AI is impacting all of these.
Sure.
And I think the biggest danger to all of this is not, the typical like data mesh kind of thing, but the cognitive overload that comes from the acceleration of AI. What we're seeing is that like if an AI can provide hundreds of thousands or millions of lines of code, the problem is that your engineering team can't keep up with that rate of review.
Correct. That was my point before,
Yes.
right? If now we have an opinion about every transaction, who reads that opinion, and how do we make it so that they don't have to read every one?
Correct.
Right? How do we make it so that, like, we're already buried by alerts?
Right.
If I've got 20 people in my SOC, I've got 9,000 alerts a day. I
Yes.
can't read 9,000 alerts a day with 20 people.
No.
Right? So we have to get to a point where we very rapidly understand where our focus should be.
Right.
We're focused on the thing that is critical, because there's no other way to do it.
Right.
And all of the rest, we all understand we are not going to get to.
No, exactly. So, I mean, we're starting to see with software, with AI engineering, we're starting to see a huge amount of automation happening in the software supply chain. We're starting to see things like PR reviews with like an AI first pass,
Yeah, for sure.
right? We're starting to see things where you can do complete automation of like the check-ins and all the rest of the CI/CD pipelines, deployment. We could see all of that. And so then what has to happen then is that you should only be bubbling up to the humans the things that AI cannot resolve itself.
For sure. All right. So we could do this for 3 or 4 days, I'm pretty sure. But let's start to wrap up. So I want to ask you.
Sure.
We've gone kind of everywhere through the AI chain.
Yes.
For someone watching this today that's in a decision maker seat,
Yes.
what is the one thing or maybe two things that they could do today that's going to have a measurable impact on getting their arms wrapped around this problem, or understanding this problem, or even communicating this problem? What do you think they should do?
Yeah. Okay. So a long time ago, I was taught that the first rule of change management is to limit the scope of change. You can boil the ocean, you can take your Bunsen burner down to the Pacific or the Atlantic, and you can try and do it all, and you can't. So I think what's most important for like the champion of AI at your organization is to think about what would be the number one thing you'd like to see into production that can then be the tip of the spear for other things to follow. If it's something that's going to happen and it's just a standalone project, that's great, but there's no learning that you can use elsewhere. So what is the one thing that you can do that will have knock-on effects? If I do this, for instance, for engineering, maybe then product management also gets this side benefit. Marketing might get this side benefit. What is the one thing that you want to focus upon to be kind of like, you know, your tentpole project? Get that one down and then scaffold out across the rest of the organization. But really start narrowing down what is the use case I think that's going to make a huge amount of difference for this organization, and then how can I use that to permeate across the entity?
Fantastic. And then finally, for people like me who want to learn more, how do we get a hold of Redpanda, and how do we get a hold of you?
Redpanda.com, and I am Peter Corless on LinkedIn, and I treat it like Slack. You're more than happy to follow me, but I invite you to get connected.
Excellent. Well, this has been another episode of Business Disruptions in Tech. Like, subscribe, follow, share, and we'll see you in our next episode.